Welcome to the channel, everybody. Great to have you along with me. This is October 3rd, 2024. Got a big episode on tap with you. We're going to have a little after show after this episode as well, which is about an hour long. We're going to have Exmo Joe from the Hellfire agencies on tap here. It's going to be very fascinating stuff here. We're going to delve into Alma chapter 30 in the Book of Mormon, which explores the controversial figure of Korihor, a much maligned figure in Book of Mormon mythology, often labeled as the Antichrist. Was Korihor wrong, or actually did he have a point? Maybe he was right. That's what we're going to examine here tonight. In this thought-provoking discussion, we tackle the complexities of not only Korihor's arguments, and we will look at the misconceptions that surround his character. We'll explore the concept of hellfire agencies as well with Exmo Joe and his incredible book, The Korihor Argument, which is available right now on Hellfire Agency's website and also on Amazon.com. And we're going to shed light on all of this in this incredible episode. Now, whether you're a believer or a skeptic or just curious, this episode is going to offer fresh insights and nuanced perspectives on one of the most misunderstood figures in all of Mormon scripture. Don't forget to like, subscribe for more deep dives into the faith, doubt, and everything in between. I think we're ready to kick this one off here. And here we go. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Real Talk Mormonism. I am your humble host, Dives, and yes, that's talent on loan from Kolob. This time we've got a special episode here with Exmo Joe from the Hellfire Agency. Exmo Joe, welcome to the Mormon News Roundup.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dives. We got to do more of these.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be a fantastic collaboration. And what are we going to be talking about this time, Exmo Joe?
Yeah, we were going to talk about Korihor, who's my personal hero and the subject of my book, The Korihor Argument. I moved over there, but that's okay. You've got it on the screen. That's cool.
Yeah, tell us about your book here, The Korihor Argument, A Missionary's Journey Out of Mormonism. This is the first edition here. It's got 4 stars on Amazon, released in 2015. What's this book all about here, Joe?
That was 5 stars for the first 6 months, I will have it noted, but then the Mormons found it. Basically, it started out, I just wanted to document that Korihor wins this debate and all of the philosophy around how it is that Korihor, who is the atheist, the main atheist character in the Book of Mormon, wins his debate with Alma. And while I was doing that, I decided, well, I might as well throw in my personal experience. And then it became my memoir about losing my faith in God while I was a Mormon missionary in Peru in 99 to 2001.
That sounds absolutely fantastic. Now, as far as the zeitgeist is concerned, Korihor is kind of a mythical figure in Mormonism. He's, of course, in the Book of Mormon itself, specifically in Alma chapter 30. Who is Korihor and what is he all about? Give us a 30,000-foot view of Korihor as a person.
Korihor is the epitome of what you might call a Dawkins 6 in the atheist community. Richard Dawkins wrote a book called The Selfish Gene, in which he, made a 1 to 7 scale. If 1 is, I believe there's a God and there's nothing you can do to change my mind, and 7 is, I believe there's no God, there's nothing you can say to change my mind. Even Richard Dawkins, one of the most notorious atheists on the planet, says, I'm a 6 because it's irresponsible to be a 7. Basically, that's Korihor. Korihor is accused of being of teaching people that there is no God and there will be no Christ. And then in the Book of Mormon it says, but they could not do anything to him about it in ancient Nephite culture because it was against the law to hold a man again on account of his belief. So, of course, they arrest him. As soon as they say that, they arrest him, and then he gets transferred from one Nephite leader in the Book of Mormon to another. And he confounds them. They have no answer to it. And then at the end, I'll just spoiler alert, he gets struck dumb, which it's not entirely clear if that means he's struck deaf or mute or deaf mute. It's kind of like a little of all. It very clearly, the story starts to break down as it goes along. But he basically wins the debate, and as retaliation for that, so that he cannot confound any more people with his confusing words, Alma strikes him dumb so that he cannot speak. So at least muteness is part of it, a part of what happens. And then he gets trampled to death by Zoramite teenagers. And of course, by now I've made quite a few bones around in the Mormon bloggernacle about the fact that I have called it my out to lunch theory, which is that I think Joseph Smith just got hungry and started losing track of the plot at the end. But what's fascinating about it is, if you do believe that Joseph Smith is the author of the Book of Mormon, which I think is likely, then who is Korihor? And this is one of the things that always bothered me about Korihor winning the argument and getting the silencing for it, is because Korihor is, if Joseph Smith is the author of the Book of Mormon, then Korihor is from his mind, and Korihor is Joseph Smith's own doubts about God, and they win. And that, ironically enough, is the first time I realized I could actually relate to Joseph Smith in a way, because I get it. I get exactly what he's saying. But in the end, the most important thing about Korihor himself is now his name is spoken with vitriol and vinegar by all these Mormon podcasts, or Ward Radio. They talk about him all the time. On Jacob Hanson's Thoughtful Faith, they talk about it all the time, and they speak his name with this poison and this vinegar. And I'm like, you realize that all you're talking about is how critical thinking is your dead set enemy. The worst thing that could happen to you is to apply a little bit of critical thinking, and you shouldn't, because Joseph Smith himself probably came up with this character, and it is a testament to that. It wins. Even in Joseph Smith's mind, it wins.
Yes. So in the zeitgeist of Mormonism, you're right. Korihor, if you do a Google search for Korihor, of course, he's only in Mormon parlance here, but there's been a great deal of electrons and videos that have been burned up discussing this incredibly evil and antichrist person from the Book of Mormon. And it wasn't until I came across your book or met you that I realized, and this is what I put on my moniker here, Joe, is that the Korihor fan club here, let me make sure I got the pointing here. It's hard to do. I'm the fan club of Korihor. I'm the vice president, because it appears that Korihor was right in at least a number of different aspects, though maybe not in every particular. And we're going to discuss that a little bit in today's episode. So going from Alma chapter 30 here, we have Korihor, the Antichrist, who ridicules Christ, the atonement, and the spirit of prophecy. He teaches that there is no God, no fall of man, no penalty for sin, and no Christ. Alma testifies that Christ will come and that all things denote that there is a God. Korihor demands a sign and is struck dumb. The devil had appeared to Korihor as an angel and taught him what to say. Korihor is trodden down and dies. This is around 76 BC. Now, of course, these chapter headings, as you know, Joe, they weren't in the original Book of Mormon. They were put in the 1981 version of the book, or 1979 version, I forget which, by probably Bruce R. McConkie. How do you feel about the church's summarization of Korihor?
I mean, they got the events right. I mean, that's actually a fairly good summary of what happens, and a very good introduction to how obvious it is that it shows a little bit of the motive behind Mormon epistemology to say, if the person that you're arguing with has a good point, shut him up, get rid of him. I mean, that's what we saw. I was excommunicated. I put my letter on the floor. I was excommunicated in 2013 for that. Paul Toscano and the September 6th, they were excommunicated for that. John Dehlin was excommunicated for that. Andrew Runnels, of the CES letter. Did I say his name right? Yeah. He was excommunicated for that. And then just this last
Jeremy
week,
Runnels. Jeremy Runnels.
Jeremy's a friend of mine. Jeremy, I apologize. Jeremy Runnels. I'm like, why is it? That name's not right. And then just this last week, I haven't gotten the confirmation. I don't know if you've heard confirmed or not, but Nemo the Mormon got the axe, allegedly probably got the axe for the same thing. If somebody has, inside the church, they call it Korihor's confusing philosophy, because they can't argue against it. In fact, in the book, I have a flow chart of the debate, and then I have another one that's broken down in an article by Gerald. There it is, by Gerald Lund, who was a general authority in the Mormon Church, breaking down the debate from the Mormon side, and it's very clear how little thought they actually put into who wins this debate. Then what you're looking at there is a photograph I hastily took of my book just a few minutes ago, and but that is the flow chart that tracks through the debate, and it's surprising because when you chart it out like this, it's surprising how consistent Korihor is throughout the whole debate. And you can see, like, that first column on the left there, that is Korihor's original argument. That second column there is the response. And then, and it just goes through to the end. So it's like they literally have no answer for him. Not Ammon, the first person he goes in front of, not Gedona, the second person, other than to say, why do you discourage people from believing this thing that makes them happy? They believe that there is a God. They believe there's a Christ. That makes them happy. And Korihor tells him, look, I never said there was no God. What I said was, show me a sign. Show me that he has power. In other words, he's arguing for empiricism and he's arguing for rationalism. You make me a rational argument to show that God, there's good reason to believe in God, and he has no answer for him. And finally goes to Alma, and Alma's best answer for him. I mean, Alma at least attempts to go over his points and doesn't do a great job. He gets one solid point, in my opinion, where Alma definitely gets it because Korihor abandons it. He doesn't answer it, which is, he says to Korihor, that, I have not taken one C9, which is like a Nephite dollar, that I have not taken one C9 more than what it takes to run this church. And I'm like, okay, there's cheese down that tunnel. Let's talk about that, But Korihor leaves it alone. Okay, Alma gets 1 point. But everything else, he basically makes a terrible argument for it, or he makes no argument against it at all. And so Korihor very clearly wins. And then, of course, the end of it is that the worst thing that Alma could have done in this debate, which Korihor frames again and again as being not about whether or not God exists, but whether or not it takes evidence to believe that God exists, would be to give him evidence and of the power of God. So what does he do? He uses the power of God to strike Korihor mute, at the very least, and maybe deaf mute. And so it's like, okay, if you were trying to win the argument, that was the worst thing you could do, because he concedes the argument in the end. Not only that, but he exposes his logic and his thinking in it in saying, I can't have you going around telling other people what you're saying here. And when Korihor appeals to him and says, please, I understand now that I was wrong. I see now the light, and it was an angel sent to me from the devil who told me that there was no God, which makes zero sense. What kind of atheist out there is convinced of atheism because he saw an angel and didn't realize until too late that it was an angel from the devil? There aren't angels out here. Trust me. I know about this. I work for the Prince of Darkness. I'm telling you, there are no angels out here converting people to atheism. That's not how it works. But he makes that appeal to him. And Alma says, no, if I were to do that, you'd go out and you'd start confusing people with your dangerous philosophy. So let it be according to God's will. And God doesn't rescue him from it. God lets it happen and then kills him by means of Zoramite teenagers. And so it's like this, it so exposes the philosophy and the epistemology of Mormonism.
Yes, this is a fascinating story inside of the Book of Mormon. And just by way of reference, Jeremy Reynolds wrote the very famous letter to a CES director. Andrew Reynolds is the one who starred in the Book of Mormon musical on the original Broadway playbill. So that's just by virtue of just for your information. Now,
that's why I was confused. I was like, who is Andrew Reynolds?
Right. Now, what we're going to do during this episode here is that the church has released 3 videos, official videos, which talk about Korihor. One is for very small children, one is for children and teenagers, and then one is the church's official video, which details what Korihor is, what his arguments are, and we're going to react to those videos. The first one's like 2 minutes long, the next one's 3, and the next one's like 15-minute long, and we're going to walk through those. Now, are you familiar with the church's 3 Korihor videos here, Exmo Joe?
If I saw any of them, it was years ago. So I'm excited. I'm excited to be confronted by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Let's go.
Very nice.
It's the Redux.
Now, I am the host of the Mormon Movie Review, so I do know a thing or two about Mormon movies. Every Monday night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we either do a watch party or I release a Mormon movie review. I think I've done 196 of them so far, and counting. I guess you could count this as kind of a Mormon movie review. But let's start with the kids one here. This is an animated one, Gospel for Kids, an officially produced church video. We're going to watch a little bit of it, do some pausing, and react to how the church is portraying Alma and Korihor.
Alma and Korihor. Faith that God is real. A man named Korihor came to the land of Zarahemla. He told people that God and Jesus Christ are not real.
Okay, first of all, how do you like Korihor's look here? He looks kind of evil, doesn't he, Exmo Joe? He doesn't look.
I don't know. Yeah, that's not how I would portray him, but it's interesting that in this video he looks old. Like they're leaning into the whole old wise philosopher thing. That's different from other videos I remember seeing of him.
Yeah. Now, I just want to point out the fact that the Book of Mormon was allegedly set in probably Mesoamerica, and yet we have wheels in the background. We're going to see so many anachronisms that's going to make your head spin in these videos, because people before Columbus, they didn't really have wheel technology. There was some wheels on toys, but they weren't used in this particular manner. So you'll see anachronism after anachronism, and the church doesn't really care about that. And you also see here, listening here, ominous music that is underscoring this entire thing, showing the diabolical nature of Korihor by using all of the church's cinematic tricks here. So let's keep going.
Love it.
Korihor said people could only know something if they saw it. He made fun of people who believed in Jesus.
Now, I want to say one thing here with Korihor's argument that you can only believe something if you see it. In some ways, he's correct back in his time, because if you think about the Book of Mormon time frame, they didn't have written records. They didn't have, the internet. They didn't have videotapes, and they didn't have, all they had was basically an oral tradition that was very limited in scope. So in some ways, during Korihor's time, he was right. If you didn't see it, you really couldn't believe it. Is that a fair statement to make?
Yeah, even more than that. I mean, he says, show unto me a sign. It's expanding the idea of evidence beyond the empirical. Empirical is supposed to be what you can perceive with the senses, or more importantly, what you can understand out of the, out of demonstrable data. Whereas rational argument is inside the mind. It's to say, which is really his appeal, is that it's about rational evidence. It's like, okay, I get that you can't show me a picture of God. I'm not asking for it. What I'm asking you for is make it make sense to me that power exists in the world that can only be explained by God. That's an appeal to rationalism. So at least they did. I mean, they've almost got it right here in this description for kids. I'm just glad they're teaching kids about Korihor early enough. Like I started, my first doubts about the church came about with Korihor when I was a kid reading the Book of Mormon. Maybe they're training up ex-Mormons right now. There are more Exmo Joes out there
in waiting. That's true. If you look at the picture here, you will also see that there is wheat in the background of this Exmo Joe. And of course, they didn't have wheat in the Book of Mormon times. That's pretty much a blatant anachronism. There'll be so many anachronisms in these videos, it will truly make your head spin. And it also says that Korihor was making fun of people who believed in Jesus. There's something peculiar about Jesus' beliefs in general, that people seem to think that it is supposed to be immune from any criticism. If you question the idea that Jesus is still alive, then you've mocked their sacred beliefs. Now, you can question leprechauns. You can question whether Elvis is alive. You can question alien abductions. You can question whether Romulus and Remus actually founded Rome. You can question Thor and whether he throws lightning bolts. All of those are able to be questioned. But if you question Jesus, that's beyond the pale. And that's what the video is really trying to hammer home.
Right. And, it's interesting to me because, like, you'll hear this. This is something the Christian apologists do the same thing, where they say, oh, the greatest evidence in antiquity, they'll say, is the empty tomb of Christ. And I go, like I said before, the most curious anti-Mormon literature that Mormons hate more than any anti-Mormon literature is the Book of Mormon. Similarly, Christians, the most anti-Christian atheistic document that they could read is the Bible, because there is a passage in, I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but I believe it's in 1 John, where it talks about the Docetists, where it talks about that in the first century, there are Christians in Jesus's time who believe that Jesus never came to the earth in the flesh. And that actually is a very well attested to fact if you go into the Gospels that are not included in the Bible specifically, because the Greek and Roman churches had adopted this idea that Jesus definitely had an empty tomb, because Jesus was definitely crucified in Jerusalem, even though Golgotha, Calvary, pointed to me on a map, right? And then and then that he was definitely a babe born in Bethlehem. I mean, he was definitely raised in Egypt. Yeah, back when all the world was to be taxed. No, before the death of King Herod. Well, not King Herod, but one of the kings, Herod, the sons of Herod, which is a curious story in of itself. You know, this is my brother Daryl. This is my other brother Daryl. But it's curious because these people make claims of saying it's the most well-attested fact, and it is obvious to everyone by all things that there must be a God. And it's like, if you actually have the audacity to break it down and say, okay, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the logic on this. They don't really want to have a conversation. It's a tautology. It's something that insists upon itself. I said that was obvious, so it's obvious. I said it's common sense, so it's common sense. And you're not believing it is a sign you must be an idiot. And it's like, I'm an idiot. Break it down for me.
And that's what Korihor asked for. And of course, the idea that anyone carrying on a conversation in the New World would be talking about Jesus before he was even born, we have absolutely no evidence for that. There's so many anachronisms that we could spend the entire time just on that. So let's keep on going. Here's some more of his arguments.
Korihor said people did not need God's commandments. He said people could do anything they wanted. Many people believed him. They decided to do bad things.
Okay, now in context here, this is what I've gotten from Korihor, at least in context. He basically says that you can do anything you want because there's no eternal judgment. That's how I interpret that. As a person in a society where we have lots of people, if someone is preaching that, you know, for violence, for anarchy, for the overthrowing of the government, for tyranny, for anything like that, I do think that those people should be held to account. If somebody threatens the president of the United States, for instance, even though that's only a thought crime, it still has an impact. But what I think Korihor is arguing is that there's no eternal judgment. And that's how I interpret his statements. Am I on the right path here?
Yeah, I think you're getting right there. I mean, the exact language that Korihor uses is that there could be no atonement. This is as he is quoted: could be no atonement made for the sins of men, but every man fared in this life according to the management of the creature. So every man prospered according to his genius, and that every man conquered according to his strength. So it's just basically saying, in the absence of an afterlife and in the absence of purpose of life, at the end of the day, you can only be held accountable in this life for the things that you do. And in this life, you have to get what you can by material gains or by material ends. And that in and of itself is not is not illogical, at least. Now, the idea that, you know, he says whatsoever a man did was no crime.
Right.
I mean, that's a question. Does he mean no crime against the law? I mean, that could be. Is he an anarchist? That's possible. That's the other end.
That's the way I interpret it, is no eternal crime. If what
Right.
he's arguing is that there's no eternal crime, in other words, that there's no sin because there's been no demonstration of anything supernatural, then I am with him as well. But if he is saying that there's no consequence, you can do absolutely anything to anyone, it's survival of the fittest, that would be evil and that would be improper. Okay, we got to continue this train.
Korihor tried to teach the anti-Nephi Lehis, but they did not believe him. They tied him up and sent him away. He went to the land of Gideon instead. The people there also tied him up. They sent him to Alma. Korihor told Alma that God is not real. He said Alma and the other priests were lying to the people. Korihor said they were making the people follow silly traditions.
Okay, yeah, seems like you want to jump in here, Exmo Joe. What do you got for this?
Big lie, big omission here. Yeah, the children's version that doesn't include that first he gets arrested by the people, the anti-Nephi Lehis, who are the Lamanites who converted to early pre-Christ Christianity, as I call it in the Korihor argument. He's arrested and brought before Ammon, the man who smote off all the arms of the thieves. And Ammon has no answer for him. And so he deports him out of the land of the anti-Nephi Lehis, which is the most curious name. Everybody knows anti means like. So like the Nephis and Lehis is the way the Book of Mormon explains it. He's sent over into the land of Gideon to face Giddonah. So he didn't choose to go there. He's arrested, which we are told in Alma 30 is against the law. But they don't care, apparently. They're the ones committing the crime.
Interesting. I wasn't aware of that. I didn't ever catch that. Let's keep going.
He also said they were taking money from the people. Alma knew this was not true. He believed in God and Jesus. Alma said the prophets and everything on earth help people know that God is real. Korihor wanted more proof. Alma said he would give Korihor proof.
Yeah, so this goes back to what you were saying, is the fact that Alma is saying that you just look outside, you see the tree, you see the stream, you see the atmosphere, you see everything has been prepared for you. You don't need any further evidence than just seeing what the world is in front of your very eyes.
Right, which is, of course, a tautology. And fine, you have a tautology. That doesn't mean it's not true. It means that if you're going to prove that it's true, break it down by the logic. Okay. Then, in other words, he's trying to make an Aristotelian argument. The question of, if there is no God, why is there anything, right? So, why is there something rather than nothing? Is a deep philosophical conversation that we can have and that I tackle in the Korihor argument. But here, by just simply saying, well, the fact that there is stuff means there has to be a creator of that stuff, it doesn't pass the Occam's razor. You have to make a huge assumption here, which is that things don't happen on an arbitrary basis. But if all things testify of anything, they testify of the arbitrary nature of the universe, that the universe exists because it just exists. The Bible tells us that there are stars in heaven to give us light. But now we have the James Webb Space Telescope taking images of beautiful pictures of stars in their cocoons, in their womb, as they are being formed in faraway places we never would have seen without the James Webb Space Telescope. So somebody's wrong here, and the wrongness falls on the person who says these things came into being so that we could have something to look at. And it makes sense that a pre-Bronze Age society might believe something like that. Okay. Or Bronze Age society might believe something like that. Now we have more awareness and understanding of the universe. Our understanding has to expand to include we live in a universe that's arbitrary. I will mention this before we go on, Divas. There's one thing here. Once again, we skipped over a part in the story, which is the whole experience of Korihor in the land of Gideon. Now, maybe that's because they're trying to get to the debate with Alma and Zarahemla, which is the big one. I understand that. But very noticeably omitted from here is that Giddonah challenges Korihor, saying, "Hey man, this makes us feel good. Don't kill our mellow man. Don't harsh, okay?" And Korihor gently explains to him, says, "Dude, I get it, but here's the thing. All I'm saying is, don't glut yourselves on the hard earnings of the people and force them to obey this church and this idea and these commandments and these ideas on the basis of your mere belief, and then tell them that it's obviously true when you can't even back it up with the rational case."
Yeah, Alma is basically arguing for a teleological argument here, which is the argument by intelligent design. But merely because something has the appearance of design, that does not entail that there is a divine designer. That does not follow. You have to put those together and provide evidence for that, which has not been forthcoming. We'll just put it that way. Obviously this is a 2-minute short, so they're not going to be able to get into the complete story.
He said that God would make Korihor unable to talk. As soon as Alma said this, Korihor could not talk. Korihor wrote that he knew God is real. He had always known.
Okay, so first I'll hit the anachronism here. The people at this time were not a written literate culture. No one at this time was writing anything down. These are all anachronisms. This is all an oral tradition. But how do you feel about the fact that Alma has struck him dumb, which is a little bit vague in the text as you brought out, with the fact that it could be that he couldn't speak, maybe he couldn't hear. But anyway, he has received the sign from God. We'll just put it that way.
Right. And more than that, I mean, yes, because like as you see here, Korihor writes to Alma and to the chief judge, who's been again omitted, is a character that's omitted from this whole thing. And the chief judge writes back to him, but Alma just talks to him. So it's like, wait a second. And he appears to respond to both of them. But at the, and so it's like not clear. Wait a minute, can this boy hear or not? Is the chief judge confused about whether or not he can hear? What exactly is going on? But probably, I mean, for me, the most interesting factor of this is the presuppositionalist argument. Presuppositionalism, if you're going to argue with somebody about the existence of God, give me teleological arguments or presuppositionalist arguments any day of the week, because they're the easiest. Presuppositionalism basically says, my Bible says you already know. That's how I know that you already know.
Exactly.
Pretty ironic for a religion started with the words, and they will say in those days, we have a Bible, and we need no more Bible. It's like you're making this biblical presuppositionalist argument right here. My Bible says that you know, that's how I know you know, and you're a liar. So and da 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 da. Right.
The Book of Mormon is poo-pooing on the idea that there are non-resistant non-believers. There's sufficient evidence just by your mere existence that you should know that Yahweh in particular is the divine ruler of the cosmos. Let's continue and finish up here. There's 30 seconds left.
He wrote that the devil had tricked him. The devil told Korihor to teach lies about God and Jesus. When the people learned the truth about Korihor, they did not believe his teachings. They repented and began to follow Jesus again.
And that's the end of it there. It fades out, and that's the end. How do you feel about this the first video here, Joe?
It's very well done. Good job, Church. Probably my favorite part though of that is when I started laughing so hard that Divas cut off my microphone so that I wouldn't interrupt the video, and freaking Korihor'd me right here in this program. Korihor'd again, first by the Church, now on Mormon News Roundup.
How do you feel about the overall? It was only a 2-minute clip. Did it capture the essence of Korihor? And how do you feel about Korihor's treatment? And why is Korihor such a boogeyman? Did he win this argument? I mean, he was struck dumb. How do you feel about it?
I feel like there's major omissions here that make it really dishonest. I wouldn't teach it to a child this way if you were trying to be faithful to the Book of Mormon. But once again, the piece of anti-Mormon literature that Mormons hate the most is the Book of Mormon. They didn't mention anything about that. No, it wasn't that Alma thought that God should curse him with muteness, at the very least. He said, let it happen according to thee, and then according to God's will, which is another way of saying, as two former priesthood holders, I'm a former priesthood holder, that's the rhetoric behind how priesthood blessings at least work. One resumes priesthood cursings operate in the same logic. That the priesthood holder can't make something happen contrary to God's will. But it's the priesthood, it's the authority to speak on the behalf of God, according to Mormonism, that gives him the power to curse Korihor. And in addition to that, if on top of that they decide to omit Ammon and Gidona from the argument, take the chief judge out of the argument, that's of course one thing. But I think perhaps I think that's wrong to omit that, because people shouldn't understand that nobody had an answer for him. Alma's bad answers only came after other people failed to answer him. And then at the end, the chief judge is a very important character in the story, because the chief judge writes to all the communities. This is a political leader writing to all the community, telling them about how Korihor gets trampled to death while going house to house to beg for his food, because his living was apparently made in talking and speaking and giving his philosophy. Now he can't even subsist. He can't even survive. And he says, now we see the punishment, what occurs to people who believe in the manner of Korihor. In other words, you see what critical thinking will get you? This will get you starved to death and trampled to death by Zora, my teenager. You want that? Is that what you want to happen to you? And so the fact that they would use this as a political cudgel against people in the community, so that, it very much aligns with the history of Mormonism and the philosophy that seems to guide Joseph Smith's life all throughout. I mean, look, you see, this is another one of the reasons why I think it is very plausible that Joseph Smith wrote the Book of Mormon, because when he decides that this atheist must have been convinced by an angel from the devil, this lines up exactly with all the struggles of Joseph Smith in his early years, experimenting with the occult, experimenting with folk magic. I mean, this is Joseph Smith confessing to way more than he would confess to if he knew that one day Mormonism and Mormons in general would not want anything to do with his activities as a young man. So I just think it's curious that they chose to omit all of the parts that make Joseph Smith look really bad.
But just for a clarification's point, you can see this banner that's rolling around the bottom here, Joe. I still got the priesthood, just for your information. Well, as of right now. Now, whether I'm authorized by the church to use the priesthood, that's a different story. So that is a small flex on you. The biggest omission for the video.
Strike me dead. Just strike me dumb, man. Come on, let's do it.
That's a tall order. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. But the biggest omission for me for the video was the fact that they didn't show his untimely and demise. The fact that he died. I guess the kids don't need to hear these stories of divine genocides and people who are literally consigned to their own deaths by God's action. God created Korihor knowing that if he struck him dumb, that he would have to go around begging and would die a humiliating death and would be trampled and would not have the proper food. God created him for that purpose, knowing that that would happen, but that is not palatable to children, so we're just going to leave that off.
Yeah, and okay, fine. It's a PG-13 story. I agree. But then if that's a PG-13 story, maybe they should put a PG-13 rating on the Book of Mormon. Maybe, why isn't the Book of Mormon have an ages recommendation on it, or what do they call it, parent warning, like they have on video games? I mean, what do you have in there that is any more gory, or that is any less gory, I should say, or any less dangerous or any less graphic than than some of the video games that they insist have to be warned. Parents have to be warned. Your child is about to consume this. It's like, okay, can we address the fact that all the logic behind the Holocaust is contained in the Bible, is contained in the Book of Mormon? They got it. I mean, you got everything you need to raise the next author of Mein Kampf right there in Holy Writ.
Yep. Okay. Now here is the second video here. This is from the Book of Mormon Reader, which is generally for, maybe kids, maybe teenagers as well. And we're going to get another treatment here of Korihor.
A man named Korihor came to Zarahemla. He did not believe in Jesus Christ and preached that what the prophets had said about the Savior was not true.
Of course, we have no evidence of anybody talking about Jesus before he came in the New World. That goes without saying. And
Korihor told the people they were foolish to believe that Jesus would come to the earth and suffer for their sins.
Okay, now he's arguing here that we don't have good evidence that there is going to be a Jesus that's going to come to the world. And the whole idea of suffering is also one of the weirdest Christian doctrines. Is Korihor right on this aspect as well?
It's interesting because we don't know exactly how much of Korihor is being represented in the story, which is interesting. If you get into the story, if you suspend disbelief, okay, so I'll try. At the beginning, yes, he's described as saying that there was no God and there should be no Christ. But then once the character starts speaking in the debate, he says, I did not say that there is no God. So right there, we have a contradiction. So inside the story,
Right.
we're seeing that he's being misrepresented by whoever is the narrator of the story, which would make sense. And then the question, of course, comes up, who is the narrator? Why don't they have an editor? And but supposedly they do have an editor. Whoever the narrator is that wrote the original play, their editor is Mormon, who is abridging all of this or compiling it, editing the whole story. And so therefore he is, he's the editor. And then it's being translated into a completely different language by Joseph Smith through the power of God. Joseph Smith putting his face into a hat, or Hannah Stoddard and people at the Joseph Smith Foundation, or taking glasses from a giant fixed by an arm to a breastplate and looking down into it and looking down and reading it that way. But either way, seeing the words in front of him and then having and reading them out loud to have somebody else, usually Oliver Cowdery, also apparently Martin Harris and or Emma Smith, reading them so that they can repeat it back to him, and including the spelling, which Joseph Smith was a notoriously bad speller. If you've ever seen like letters written by him, he was a bad speller. And then he would listen and go, yeah, that's right. And so, I mean, if that's the way this is being brought to us, yes, the Book of Mormon says if there are mistakes, there are the errors of men. Fair enough. But let's be clear. These are mistakes and errors of men that are passing through at least 2 layers of editing, to mention nothing of the fact that Joseph Smith later winds up editing the whole Book of Mormon again and re-releasing another edition. There's another opportunity to correct the problems in the story, and they last through the whole thing because in their minds this makes sense.
He said people could not be punished for their sins because there was no life after death. Many people believed Korihor. They became wicked. Korihor tried preaching to the people of Ammon, but they would not listen. They tied him up and took him to Ammon, who forced him out of the city.
Yeah, so that's the first interaction that we missed on the first video. Now he's been taken to Ammon, and as we'll find out, Ammon had no response for Korihor and just tied him up, which, as you pointed out, was against the law.
That's right. I mean, that's what it says in Alma 30 in the Book of Mormon. But, what's interesting about this video, these are these living scriptures, like comic book things, which is curious because
Book of Mormon reader, technically, these are Book of Mormon readers. Living scriptures are church affiliated productions. This is an official church video.
Oh, okay. But I mean, the illustrations are from a book that I remember growing up anyways. They were the blue books. They were the book that you picked up when you wanted to draw crazy, wicked things. And then you needed a hard surface. You'd go and get the blue book off the shelf. If you actually opened it, you might learn about Korihor. So that actually...
Yeah, from this book here, the Book of Mormon Stories book, which is an official church production. And all of these things that we're seeing here is just a depiction of these pictures that everybody, or at least that I grew up with, that you grew up with.
Okay, yeah.
Korihor went to the land of Gideon, but the people there would not listen to him either. The chief judge sent him to Alma. Alma asked Korihor if he believed in God. Korihor said he did not. Alma testified that there is a God and that Christ would come.
Now, how do you feel about the depiction here in the second video so far?
I mean, the more faithful depiction, again, we're not getting the whole depiction of his being arrested and, extradited from the land of the Anti-Nephi-Lehi's to Gideon, to Zarahemla, as he confounds people. But I thought it was very interesting to see a blonde Nephi man in one of these last images with the top knot on top of his head, because obviously they live in Mesoamerica. They'd have similar traditions and hairstyles to the people there now. But look, this is half honest. I mean, he does ask Korihor if he believes in God, but first he asks him again, do you teach these people that they do not believe in God, or that there is no God? And Korihor clarifies again, this is multiple times, he clarifies, I did not say there is no God. I said, but I do not believe that there is a God. And then, Alma verifies it. And he says, do you believe that there is a God? And he says, no. And so, okay, they got it half right, but they skipped a very important part, which is the premise of the whole debate, which is that one needs to have some kind of rational evidence to even claim to honestly and integrally believe that there is a God.
Got it.
Korihor wanted Alma to perform a miracle to prove there is a God. Korihor said he would believe in God if he saw a sign of God's power.
So is there a problem here, Exmo Joe, with asking for evidence for metaphysical claims? Because Jesus in the New Testament says that a wicked and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, but that's what Korihor wanted.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. This is actually in keeping with Christian faith and Christian doctrine, and Jesus especially. I mean, especially if you take as serious this account of doubting Thomas from, if I'm not mistaken, the Book of Acts, which is the most laughable scripture.
I think it was from Luke. It was actually from Luke.
Was it Luke?
Yeah.
Well, the Luke Act cycle anyway, which again, which is the same thing. And it's like, this is the most laughable thing because this is obviously fan fiction written well after the other gospels, which are still written plausibly after the, Marcion's gospel and or the gospel according to the Hebrews and so forth, which don't include any of this narrative. But anyway, doubting Thomas, you remember, wouldn't believe that Christ had risen from the grave until he could actually put his hand into Jesus's side. It's like, wow, it's quite a thing, and then Jesus tells him, because thou hast seen, thou hast believed, blessed are they who have not seen and yet believe. Once again, it's true in Christian theology and Christian doctrine, you do see this same argument that's being made by Alma. So fair enough, fair play to them on that. It just shows to me that Christianity is writ large is just as afraid of critical thinking and rational arguing as Mormonism is. It's just a continuation. It really is a restoration of Christianity in that way.
Yeah.
Jacob Hansen, you have a clip. I said it. I said something you can use.
Yeah, I just looked it up. It's in John chapter 20. And of course, the idea here is that Thomas, who asked for reasonable evidence to confirm that Jesus had been resurrected, well, he was a slothful and not a wise servant. And blessed are people who believe for no good reason, who suspend all critical faculties and are nothing but blind sheep. That is to be revered in theism and in Christianity and in Mormonism from this particular argument here with Korihor.
Alma told Korihor he had already seen many signs of God's power through the scriptures and the testimonies of all the prophets. Alma said the earth and everything on it and the movement of the planets in the sky are also signs that there is a God.
And we talked about this also as well. This again is the teleological argument, which says that because the earth appears to be designed, because you yourself appear to be designed, then therefore there must be a divine designer behind it. Those two things, however, do not follow. Let's just continue on, or we're going to run short on time.
Korihor still refused to believe. Alma was sad because of Korihor's wickedness and warned him that his soul might be destroyed. Korihor still wanted a sign to prove there is a God. Alma said the sign from God would be that Korihor would not be able to speak. After Alma said this, Korihor could not speak. Korihor wrote that he knew this sign was from God and that he had always known there is a God. He asked Alma to pray and remove the curse. Alma knew that if Korihor could speak, he would lie again to the people. Alma said the Lord would decide if Korihor would speak again.
Right. So how do you feel about this? We're almost done with the second one. How's the treatment of Korihor on this one?
I mean, again, we're not getting the full story because we're not getting the arguments that Korihor makes against Alma and against the church of that time, and for a very telling reason. Because everything Korihor said about what was wrong with the church in Nephi's time, you can say about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints today. Now, maybe it wasn't true about Nephi's time. I mean, none of the Nephites existed, so it doesn't really matter. But maybe it wasn't true that they glutted themselves on the fat produced by the people. Okay, but the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints does, and that's very clearly so. So the omission of Korihor's argument is very telling about what narrative the church wants to tell, and more particularly what they want to omit from the argument of Korihor.
Very, very interesting.
The Lord did not give Korihor back his speech. Korihor went from house to house begging for food. The chief judge sent a letter throughout the land telling what had happened to Korihor. He told those who had believed Korihor to repent. The people repented.
And of course, this is the ending here, the demise of Korihor.
Korihor went to live with the Zoramites. One day while he was begging, he was trampled to death.
And that's how it ends here. This is a not so subtle message, Exmo Joe, that if you reject Mormon Jesus, that things are not going to be very well for you. You're going to be struck dumb. You're going to be hungry. You're going to be friendless. You're going to wander the world, and then you're going to be trampled to death. Talk about a subtle message.
Yeah, for real. I mean, if there was a way to edit this after Joseph Smith's martyrdom and after the Utah, migration, it would be to put in parentheses, for example, one day we will have Danites. Because here, the one thing that is just, at least they brought in the chief judge, which I think is an important character. And they brought in that he wrote. So kudos to the church, for, in this other version, the PG-13 version, for showing what happens to Korihor and making people stop and think about, oh, I don't know if that was necessary. But number two, that the chief judge warns everybody, this is what will happen to you. The part that I would contend against, that they get those events backwards. The chief judge warns the people of what would happen to them after Korihor dies, if I'm not mistaken. I've already been wrong once in this podcast, but I'll look it up, and I will eat my words if I'm wrong. But from what I remember from Alma 30, it goes first Korihor is trampled to death, then the chief judge writes to the people and explains, this is what happens to you when you believe like Korihor.
Okay, we'll have to look that up and double check it. Now that takes us to our final video, which is about 11 minutes long, which is the church's full official treatment of Korihor, which they put with live actors this time. Let's check it out.
It came to pass in the latter end of the 17th year, there came a man into the land of Zarahemla, and he was antichrist. For he began to preach unto the people against the prophecies which had been spoken by the prophets concerning the coming of Christ.
And of course, there's no record of anybody having these type of engravings in Mesoamerica, these type of plates. There's never been any discovery. Forget even in the New World, even in the Old World, no one kept plates of this kind. And to be able to keep these ancient records, there's never been a language that's been discovered in the New World, to my knowledge, from scholars that has shown that there's been either Hebrew or Reformed Egyptian or anything like that. This is all one giant anachronism.
Right. And I am looking it up here, and you can share this or not if you want. I'll share my screen if you want to. But I did look it up, and it is okay. I am not entirely correct there, so let me just clarify my position. Okay, so hold on, let me get back to that window. Okay, so it went like this: the exact events. First, the knowledge of what happened to Korihor was published throughout all the land, and the chief judge warns them all what had happened to Korihor will happen to them unless they speedily repent, lest the same judgments come unto them. So there he is talking about Korihor being struck dumb and being cast out and having to go to house begging for his food. Then Korihor dies and is trampled to death by the people of the Zoramites. And then over here at the end, it says, and thus we see the end of him who perverteth the ways of the Lord, and thus we see that the devil will not support the children, his children at the last day, but doth speedily drag them down to hell. So whether that is taken from the chief judge's writings or whoever the original author of Alma is, which is not exactly clear, or whatever plates the Nephi was or Mormon was taking all this from, at least according to Mormon, he has to reiterate, this is what happens to you when you follow after Korihor's teachings. So
Yeah. This is what happens to you if you ask for reasonable evidence to confirm beliefs, and that you're not just a blind sheep, that you don't just obey the silly traditions of your fathers just because your mom and dad told you to believe something, that you just go ahead and believe something blindly, and that you actually use your critical thinking and faculties to withhold judgment as a rational skeptic until such time as we either have a good reason or evidence to confirm beliefs. This is what is going to happen to you. You are going to be dead, and the devil will have all power over you. There is a major fear-mongering element that goes along with Korihor's entire story.
And look, this conversation is a good example of the whole point of what Korihor was talking about. You've seen me now twice in this conversation admit, or no, 3 times in this conversation admit that, wait a second, that's just how I remember it, and it turns out that's wrong. At least, show me the person who argues for religion, for Mormonism, for God, and is willing to admit that they are wrong. They take moral offense to the suggestion that they are wrong. At the end of the day, what we're talking about here, what Korihor is talking about here, is you need to be prepared to accept the possibility that you are wrong, or stop insisting to people that you are right. I can be wrong. Show me that I'm wrong so I can get better at my thinking, and so that I can be sure that what I'm saying is true. And so I stop saying things that are not true. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Christ. For no man can know of anything which is to come. Behold, ye cannot know of things which ye do not see. Therefore ye cannot know that there shall be a Christ. Ye look forward and say ye see a remission of your sins?
And many more such things did he say unto them, telling them that there could be no atonement made for the sins of men. But every man fared in this life according to the management of the creature. Therefore every man prospered according to his genius, and that every man conquered according to his strength. And whatsoever a man did was no crime.
I've never seen I've never seen a demonstration here, Exmo Joe, of somebody who could foretell the future, who could tell us of things to come, that was reliable in any way, of things that had an eternal significance. Obviously, things of a mundane nature. I can predict tomorrow a bunch of things that I'm going to do, and I can actually make sure that those things come to pass. That's hardly impressive. I've never seen anyone who's able to do that in any significant way, of things of significant import for which they would have no idea about those things to come. So it seems like Korihor once again is arguing a correct way of viewing the world.
Yeah, I mean, at least, like you say, anything of spiritual or moral import or significance. You say, for example, Einstein predicted what are now known as Einstein rings, and now, after he is long dead, we have telescopes that can see them. Which is to say that there are galaxies that pass, in front of, in a certain context. It's not exactly the way it works, but in space-time, you have a galaxy that crosses between us and another galaxy, a more ancient galaxy, and the light from the one behind, wraps around the other galaxy, which is the coolest thing, basically acting as a signal booster that allows us to use spectrometry to see what that galaxy was made out of. And now with the James Webb Space Telescope, we're able to see a galaxy, at least one galaxy that's over 12 billion years old, from when this universe was just barely brand new, and see what it was made out of. All of that was predicted inside of Einstein's mind, and hence why they're called Einstein rings. But that's because he was able to use evidence, first of all, because Einstein was a great Korihor, in that he was, originally his understanding of gravity, and especially of black holes, was basically disproven. He had to completely transform his understanding of what gravity is, and as a result, he was able to transform, using mathematics, using his mind, transform our entire understanding of how gravity works. It's about, that's why science is better than faith, is because science admits when it's wrong and is a system for being able to say, look, you got this wrong. How cool is that? It's like, I got it wrong. How awesome is that? Now we know something better.
I'll just say that science is about making predictions, and those scientific predictions are generally things that can be verified. I've never seen a religious practitioner who's made predictions that have been verifiable, repeatable, and have come to pass in any way, shape, or form. So I think Korihor is once again right.
And thus he did preach unto them, leading away the hearts of many, causing them to lift up their heads in their wickedness. yea, leading away many women and also men to commit whoredoms, telling them that when a man was dead, that was the end thereof. And he came over into the land of Gideon and began to preach unto them also. And here he did not have much success, for he was taken and bound and carried before the high priest and also the chief judge over the land.
I mean, why are they arresting this guy? He's just saying, well, I haven't seen evidence of anybody who's going to be coming to visit us who's a supernatural creature. I haven't seen evidence for Jesus. I haven't seen any good prophecies. How's he getting arrested for just speaking his mind?
That's a great question. I mean, the only answer I can give is in the mind of whoever is writing this story. That's what you deserve, whether or not it's in keeping with the law. So, I mean, and look, we were talking a moment ago about science, and now I forget the exact point I was going to bring. So never mind.
Why? Why do you go about perverting the ways of the Lord? Why do you teach this people that there should be no Christ? To interrupt their rejoicings? Why? Why do you speak against all the prophecies of the holy prophets?
Because I do not teach the foolish traditions of your fathers. And because I do not teach this people to bind themselves down under the foolish ordinances and performances which were laid down by ancient priests,
baby,
to use
go.
your power and
Yes.
authority over them.
Yeah.
To keep ignorance that they must not lift up their heads, but be brought down according to thy words. Ye say that this people is a free people? Behold, I say they are in bondage. And ye say that these ancient prophecies are true? Behold, I say that ye do not know that they are true. And these people are a guilty and a fallen people because of the transgression of a parent. Behold, I say that a child is not guilty because of its parents. And ye also say that Christ shall come. He shall be slain for the sins of the world, and thus ye lead away this people after the foolish traditions of your fathers, and according to your own desires, and keep them down, even as it were in bondage, that ye may glut yourselves with the labors of their hands. That they durst not look up with boldness, and that they durst not enjoy their rights and privileges. Yea, they durst not make use of that which is their own, lest they should offend their priests, who do yoke them according to their desires, and have brought them to believe by their traditions, and their dreams, and their whims, and their visions, and their pretended mysteries, that they should, if they do not do according to their words, offend some unknown being who they say is God, a being who never has been seen or known, who never was, nor ever will be.
Okay, that's quite a diatribe there, but did Korihor get things right?
Oh man, I didn't realize. I don't think I'd seen this one. That's awesome. That church brethren, my friends, my former brothers in Christ, use this one much better. Still skipped over Ammon, still skipped over the fact that what they were doing was illegal according to their Nephite First Amendment. But you know, this is better because he really gives it to him, and you know, he lays out some of these points. The tabula rasa. If you look at that chart from the Korihor argument, you know, Korihor did indeed repeat again and again the argument for tabula rasa, that which is the Lockean theory that clean slate, that every child is born innocent and without the sins of their parents, which is also in the Book of Mormon. So it's like, and it's wild because he like brings it and puts it right into his face, tells him that the priests glut themselves on the people on the earnings of the people, tells them that they just want to follow the foolish traditions of their fathers, and all of this is very good points that he's making to Giddonah. Never mind the fact he already made it to Ammon, and Ammon's answer was that he answered him not a word, and then Giddonah has no answer for him after this. In fact, he doesn't. I don't recall anywhere in Alma 30 where he tells him to shut up while he's in the midst of it. But that's the way I had always thought of it too. Is that Giddonah was like, "Okay, shut up. Never mind. I don't want anything to do with this. This is above my pay grade. You're going to Zarahemla, buddy. Good luck to you."
Yeah. So there's a cinematic quality to this, which I think is really nice. And as you pointed out, he brings up a lot of really good, rational, skeptic arguments, not cynical, but just rational skepticism, waiting for evidence until we can confirm our beliefs. And he asks him for it. And instead of this righteous priesthood holder giving him the simple answers, he's just asking for, what are the good reasons for your beliefs? What's the evidence here? Instead of providing a good evidence, he hid his candle under a bushel and just dismissed him away. What an absolute coward. And unfortunately, Exmo Joe, as you know, so many people out there claim to have good evidence of God or good reasons for the beliefs, but they won't provide them in any way that can be demonstrable to the rest of us so that we can believe right along with them. And yet they're going to have sanctimonious judgment against individuals like Korihor. Alma is an absolute coward.
Enough.
Absolutely.
Now when the high priest and chief judge saw the hardness of his heart, yea, when they saw that he would revile even against God, they would not make any reply to his words, but they caused that he should be bound, and they delivered him up into the hands of the officers, sent him to the land of Zarahemla, that he might be brought before Alma, the chief judge who was governor over all the land.
Oh, sorry, that wasn't Alma. That was Ammon. I'm sorry. That was Amulek. Who was
That was Gedona. That was Gedona. That was
my bad. Okay, my bad.
Why do ye lead away this people after the silly traditions of your fathers? Ye keep them down in bondage, that ye may glut yourselves with the labors of their hands, that they durst not look up with boldness, and enjoy their rights and privileges.
Thou knowest that we do not glut ourselves on the labors of these people. For behold, I have labored even from the commencement of the reign of judges until now, with my own hands for my support. Notwithstanding my many travels round about the land to declare the word of God among my people, and notwithstanding my many labors which I had performed in the church, I have never received even so much as one senine for my labor.
This Alma is a real Book of Mormon hero, isn't he? You know, telling people he's really a guy you can look up to, isn't he?
I mean, that was my first impression. I'm like, oh, this guy's the most Mormon. It's like, okay, fine. But here's the deal. Look, fair is fair. Alma is making a point here that, I mean, he's presenting us with evidence. I mean, for his case on this accusation that the church gluts itself on the earnings of the people. And according to his explanation, Korihor is wrong. And according to Alma 30, Korihor doesn't answer him. So who knows what actually happened? Nothing. None of this happened. All of this is fiction. But fair is fair. He wins that point. Alma gets a point. And I put that in the Korihor argument. I've said this from the beginning. Oh, fair is fair. He gets a point there. What unfortunately, the point that he wins about Alma and about the Nephite pre-Christian, the Church of Early Day Christ in America, is not true about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I mean, that's very clear. So, I mean, and so it's no wonder to me in the kid versions, the smaller kid versions, that point is completely omitted entirely.
Now, if we do not receive anything for our labors in the church, what doth it profit us to labor in the church? Save it were to declare the truth, that we may have rejoicing in the joy of our brother.
Why is Korihor harshing on people's vibe when it doesn't really affect him in general? Why can't you just let us sip our Kool-Aid and leave us alone?
Yeah, I mean, after all, it's not like we use our position in the church to get exclusive book contracts where we write books that are distributed by the church and where people who are members of the church are expected to buy those books. And that's in addition to our measly salary of what is it now officially, like $140K a year?
And at least $260,000 a year, at least.
Oh, well, I mean, barely a pittance. I mean, just what we need, what a good laborer in the Lord's vineyard needs, the bare minimum. I mean, come on, guys, this is getting embarrassing for you at this point.
Okay.
Why sayest thou that we preach to get gain, when thou of thyself knowest that we receive no gain?
Oh, that's everybody right there. That's everybody whispering to each other about, well, we do have like $300 billion in assets.
That's the difference between the Joseph Smith's conception, really, and the modern church's conception of how a church should be run.
Because thou we deceive this people, they cause us such joy in their hearts.
Yea.
Ooh.
Boy! Boy! My boy!
Believest thou that there is a God?
Nay.
Will ye deny again that there is a God, and also deny the Christ? Behold, I say unto you, I know there is a God.
It's a very Joe, this is a very powerful testimony that he knows about God and Jesus. This is no laughing matter here, Joe.
And yet I'm laughing. Because this guy that got to play Korihor, heaven help him if he's still a member of the church, but Korihor, he made an excellent Korihor. I have to say, I give kudos to the church on this casting. Whoever this guy is, he got it down, and I love him for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also that Christ shall come. What evidence have ye that there is no God, or that Christ cometh not?
So this is a very interesting part here. He says he doesn't have evidence that there is no God or that there is no Christ, and he only just holds up his hand. But this is a very important point here. It's not incumbent upon Korihor to disbelieve somebody's magical worldview. It's not incumbent upon me to disbelieve leprechauns, fairies, genies, jinns, ghosts, or whatever else. Alma seems to be setting up a non-falsifiable paradigm where if you can't disprove my barking mad beliefs, then therefore I'm justified in holding them devoid of evidence. And I'm sorry, that's just a really bad argument.
I agree. And I mean, look, that's what all of these arguments about theology come down to is, you've heard the phrase before, you cannot prove a negative. You kind of can. You can prove at least that it's not plausible. But at the end of the day, the start of critical thinking begins with an Occam's razor choice when you have two choices and say, okay, which of these bears the burden of evidence? Which one bears the burden of proof, I should say? And it's always going to be the one that is more complex, the one that requires greater presumptions. The one that says, well, because there is a God, is always going to outpace the other one because that's a big presumption based on absolutely nothing. And so it's like, I'm not saying that you can't consider it. I'm just saying that's always going to bear more burden of proof than the argument that says maybe there is a God, maybe there isn't a God, but I would need some kind of proof, which is Korihor's argument. So that's why turning around, putting it on Korihor doesn't make any sense.
I say unto you, ye have none, save your word only. But behold, I have all things as a testimony that these things are true.
I like the breathy. I like how it's nice and breathy with the emotional music.
And ye also have all things as a testimony that they are true.
Yes.
This couldn't be more Mormon if Alma would get up there with two teleprompter mirrors in front of him and say, I believe, brothers and sisters, blah, 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 blah.
This guy is straight out of Provo. I promise you that this guy right here has never gone more than 15 miles away from Provo, Utah.
Believest thou these things are true? I know that thou believest, but thou art possessed with a lying spirit. Ye have put off the Spirit of God that it may have no place in you. But the devil has power over you, and he doth carry you about, working devices to destroy the children of God.
If thou wilt show unto me a sign, that I may be convinced that there is a God, yea, show unto me he hath power, and then I will be convinced of the truth of thy words.
Seems like a pretty reasonable request here, asking for evidence before you believe. I mean, if you have no evidence whatsoever for your beliefs, how do you expect anyone else to believe them? Seems pretty reasonable.
Right. And look, there's another thing that's curious here is that Alma makes an appeal to the axiomatic values of Korihor. I give Gerald Lund this credit. He does expose that this is pretty core to Mormon epistemology. And it does remind me of somebody else we may have talked about before who does this, that you have to establish first the morals of the person speaking and what their moral ambitions are before you can establish whether or not what they say makes sense. That the first step of epistemology is, does it make you a better person in my eyes if you believe this thing? And then we'll ask what is true. And that's what Alma is saying here. It's almost like if you challenge somebody to a debate, Divas, let's say some person, and that person says, oh, I want to argue, first of all, that there is a moral quality to certain truths that makes them true, whether or not the evidence bears it out. And then you said, I'll take you up on that, and I will Korihor the hell out of you. And then they were to just like chicken out. I mean, that would be wrong.
Oh, has had signs enough. Will ye tempt your God?
Yes.
The scriptures are laid before thee, all things to note there is a God.
Why does he have to get so emotional about this? Why can't we just have a rational discussion about all this stuff?
Yeah, keep it cool, Alma.
Even the earth and all things upon the face of it, and its motion, and also all the planets, which move in their regular form, do witness
which are explained by Isaac Newton, gravity, and Einstein.
And a hell of a lot better than it is in the Book of Mormon, because later in the same book, it's explained by a prophet named Nephi, if I'm not mistaken, another Nephi, not that Nephi or that Nephi, not that Nephi or that Nephi, but another Nephi, who says that, who explains that it is the earth that is the earth that moves and not the sun, which is exactly what you would expect a farm boy from Palmyra, New York in 1830 to understand. But the sun does move. And the way that it's described is, it's describing the movement of the earth around the sun when the day and night that actually is being described there should be the rotation of the earth on its axis. In other words, you have this farm boy's understanding of cosmology in the Book of Mormon that wouldn't have fit with people's understanding of cosmology at the time of the Nephites. In fact, if the Nephites were from Mesoamerica, they would have had a better understanding, because at least they understood that there were, these galactic seasons where our sun moves around the center of the galaxy. They had a better comprehension of that than the Book of Mormon does. But we only get Joseph Smith's era of thinking, of a European descendants thinking from 1830 in the Book of Mormon, which is curious.
Planets, which move in their regular form, do witness there is a supreme creator.
Well,
and yet you go about leading away the hearts of this people, testifying unto them there is no God.
He's fighting back those tears. Look at him.
Against
He's
all
getting
these
to him.
witnesses.
I will deny unless you show me a sign.
I like how
Me too.
I like how he bares his teeth all the time. He's kind of got the fangs out all the time, just gritting. The angry. He's the original angry ex-Mormon there, Exmo Joe.
I agree, and I love it. I'm here for it.
Uh-oh.
Here goes.
I am grieved because of the hardness of your heart.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
You will still resist the spirit of truth. Thy soul shall be destroyed.
Oh. You're going to destroy a man's soul? You're not going to give him a second chance at all? You're not going to provide any evidence or reason or rationality. You're just going to say, you asked for evidence. I'm not going to give you any, and your soul's destroyed. That's right. Bankrupt.
You just want to reach through the page and say, Alma, the worth of souls is great. Save this man's soul. They won't have it.
But behold, it is better that thy soul should be lost than that thou shouldest be the means of bringing many souls down to destruction.
Oh, the Laban. He gave him the Laban.
If ye shall deny again, God shall smite thee, that thou shalt become dumb. That thou shalt never open thy mouth anymore. That thou shalt not deceive this people anymore.
Don't cry, Korihor. It'll be good. It'll be okay, dude.
Yeah, he's on the verge of tears here. He's not holding it together here, Exmo Joe.
I know. But I mean, he's saying some hard things to him.
The existence of a God. But I do not believe that there is a God.
So basically, he originally was arguing for a hard atheism, meaning that I know there's no God. Now he's arguing for a soft atheism, saying, I just don't believe that there's a God. No God claim has met its burden of proof. It's a slight nuance in his position.
No, I mean, actually, no. From the beginning, he says, I did not say there was no God. I said there was no. If you take the narrative at the beginning, then yes, that's true. Because it's originally given to us about his description about God, is that there was no God, there would be no Christ. But in the words of Korihor, he's maintained throughout all the stages of this debate that he did not say there was no God. He said that he did not believe in God, which is, it seems to some like a distinction without a difference. But if that's the case, let me just put it to you. Let me just put it to you again. It's a position of where you are standing at the moment. Being able to say, look, I do not believe that there is a God, but that doesn't prove that there isn't. I'm just making the argument to say here, the burden of proof is on God to show himself to me, not me to show him how much I believe in him. And
or not on me to disprove your beliefs, which is what Alma asked for. He said, can you falsify my position? Of course, no one can falsify someone's position of an immaterial substance that exists beyond space and time. That's absurd.
I agree. Absolutely. 100%.
And I say that ye do not know that there is a God, and except ye show me a sign, I will not believe.
This will I give unto thee for a sign,
Uh-huh.
that thou shalt be
Whoa.
struck according to my words.
Bam.
In the name of God, ye shall be struck dumb.
Yes, sir.
Ye shall no more have utterance.
Oh, 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 what?
No,
Got him.
Korihor.
Got him. Got him.
No.
Got him. Nailed him. I tried to warn him. Tried to tell him. I tried to tell him that there was these words written in a holy book that he should have paid attention to without the slightest shred of reason or rationale, but he just wouldn't listen.
And now, when the chief judge saw this, he put forth his hand and wrote unto Korihor, saying, Art thou convinced of the power of God? In whom did ye desire that Alma should show forth his sign? Behold, he has showed unto you a sign. And now will ye dispute more? And now Korihor put forth his hand and wrote, I know that nothing save it were the power of God could bring this upon me. Yea, and I always knew that there was a God. But behold, the devil hath deceived me, and he taught me that which I should say. And I taught them insomuch that I verily believed that they were true. And for this cause I withstood the truth, even until I have brought this great curse upon me.
See, and this is where Korihor was right about a lot of things, but if he really was deceived by the devil, then he would technically be wrong, because if an angel of light appeared unto him and he was lying the whole time, does that not undermine his entire argument?
Yes, I mean, look, if Korihor, look, this strikes me as fiction that whoever wrote this story is trying to wrap it up as if Korihor was a liar the whole time. And if his words here are true, then he was a liar the whole time, and none of this makes sense. But on the other side of it is that here the thing is, now you have to prove that there is a God, that there is a devil. Thus, there are angels of the devil that impersonate angels of God, who go out and tell people, impersonating as if they are angels of God, that there is no God, which makes zero sense whatsoever. But what's also curious about this depiction of it is you see the chief judge hand the paper over to Korihor so he can read his words. Korihor writing his response, handing it back to Alma, who in the Book of Mormon speaks to him. Is like, get your story straight, dude. Does he talk to him in the show?
I'm not 100% sure if he does that right there or not.
I have brought this great curse upon me.
And of course, the biggest question for me is, why doesn't God do any of this now? So he struck Korihor dumb. Why won't he strike anybody else dumb, so that we can also have the same type of evidence? Because all the people learned from Korihor and they believed in God based on the story. How come God doesn't do this anymore? Why is the priesthood power seem to not work anymore? This is an incredibly important point.
And it came to pass that they were all convinced of the wickedness of Korihor.
Yeah, writing on plates that we absolutely know did not exist.
Therefore,
there was no writing. The only people with writing were the Mayan, and they were way after this time frame. There was no writing in the New World, period, end of story, during this time frame. There were no gold Bibles. There was nothing like this. There was no evidence of somebody in 75 BC talking about Jesus in the New World. This is just absolute Bible fan fiction through and through.
Converted again unto the Lord. And Korihor did go about from house to house, begging food for his support.
He looks pretty rough there, Exmo Joe. Look at him. He looks terrible.
Yeah. I tell you, I'm about to change my ways. I mean, I didn't realize that's what happens, man.
Yeah, look what happens here.
The people who had separated themselves from the Nephites.
So they apparently sent him away, and they aren't even going to provide for him. They took away his ability to generate his income because he can't speak anymore. I'm not sure what his job was, but they gave no cares whatsoever about his current condition. Because you didn't believe in God, boom, you're going to get smitten, and you won't even have food or a place to eat. I mean, these guys give zero Fs about Korihor as a person.
Right. They should learn how to love their neighbors themselves, frankly. I mean, turn the other cheek, brethren.
And as he went forth amongst them, behold, he was run upon and trodden down, even until he was dead.
Man, I wish we could see that depicted. That's what I really wanted to see in this video, Exmo Joe, is him getting run down by these Zormons.
Yeah, who's got Steven Spielberg's number? We got to fix this. I'll do it. I'll fix it.
Yeah, I'll release a video, but he can see it. See, he's listening to it. He looks up, and he doesn't go out there and help him. He just, oh, that Korihor dude, he asked for evidence, and that's what he gets. That's what you get when you go against Mormon Jesus. He just looks up, and then he just keeps writing.
And thus we see the end of him who perverteth the ways of the Lord. And thus we see that the devil will not support his children at the last day, but doth speedily drag them down to hell.
Oh, man. Subtle. So how do you feel? I think this is the first time you might have watched this video, or it's been a while here, Exmo Joe. How do you feel about the church's total treatment of Korihor? Actually, let's talk about all 3 videos in totality. How does the church treat Korihor in its audiovisual productions as we're wrapping things up?
It's 100% fair. I'm pricked in my heart, and I repent. I do confess that I was deceived by an angel of the devil, and I was wrong the whole time. There, Mormons, you have something. There you go. Oh, sorry. I thought it was God. I was struck dumb by the power of God. I'm like, oh, God and pissed this priesthood holder off. No, like that last one at least was a little bit better. I mean, I give kudos, but my favorite part of it is, and thus we see the blah 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 in the downtown, and then fade to the Church of Jesus Christ. It's very different than the Mormon, the old what is it? The Family, isn't it, about time ads? Remember that?
Yeah, the home front campaigns of the 70s and 80s that won so many particular ads. Yes, I have a review of those on the Mormon Movie Reviews, which is really good here. But wrapping things up here, if you want to learn more about Korihor Argument, where can you buy this book here, Joe?
You know, it's available in print on Amazon. There's enough people showing interest in it. Maybe I'll make the Kindle version available. But the audiobook version is being released chapter by chapter as quickly as I can on hellfire.agency, which is my website for my podcast. Everybody gets it there, and we'll get all of the materials I'm producing in the future. And of course, also there are these awesome episodes of the Hellfire Agency podcast. We go over Blood Atonement, which is my story about murder among the Mormons, coming out with some great new episodes of that. The Tim Ballard and the Operation Underground Railroad scandal, which is called Underground. And I got new shows coming out. There's a series I'm producing called Hillsdale Family Values, about a very interesting story about the supposed suicide of Lisa Roche. So it's like there's a whole lot of interesting things coming out in the future here.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on to Real Talk Mormonism. Everybody out there, go and subscribe to Hellfire Agency. Listen to Exmo Joe's podcast, buy the Korihor Argument. I hope we did a very good job of dealing with Korihor and the church's materials. And once again, thanks so much for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, dude. I definitely have you caused me to reconsider everything, and I think I might repent. Well, I'll get back to you, see if I reconsider everything.
Well, if you do, be sure to promise me to come back onto the Mormon News Roundup and set me straight, and hopefully you can provide me a sign once you get your priesthood back. Is that fair enough?
That's fair. I'll don Bradley, and then I'll come back and Korihor the hell out of you.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great night. Okay, out there, I hope you're still with me. We're going to have a quick after show. We're going to review a couple of these polls, and I do have something else special for you. Let's see what's going on with the polls. I got to share my screen with you. Let's have a little after party here. Thanks for coming on, Exmo Joe. Let's look at these polls and see what you guys voted for. Who is Korihor? 42% said no idea. That's interesting. Very few people knew who he was. Huh, interesting. What is Korihor known for in the Book of Mormon? His denial of Christ. Yes, that's right. Most people knew that one. Korihor's whose beard is worse? Korihor, Dives, or Exmo Joe? My beard is worse than Exmo Joe. That hurts my feelings very, very deeply there. I wish I could make this a little bit bigger. That's the best I can do on that. Okay, what did Korihor claim about the teachings of the prophets? He said that they were based on old scriptures and bad notions, right? Yeah, that's definitely the correct answer. Which group of people did Korihor primarily target with his teachings? The correct answer is the Nephites. Yep, we got that one. What happened to Korihor after he confronted Alma the Younger? He was struck dumb. That is correct. How about this next one? What sign did Korihor ask? He wanted some kind of a physical manifestation, and he got that. So you guys got that one correct, too. What was Korihor's view of the afterlife? There was no afterlife. Who was the prophet that Korihor directly challenged? Alma the Younger. Excuse me. Hellfire Agency is Exmo Joe's sick hobby. I agree with that one. Okay, let's keep on going. A couple other ones. Odds of D-Days getting excommunicated in the next year? You guys pretty much said that it was pretty much guaranteed. I don't know if that's an insult or a compliment. Who's most responsible for Korihor's death? We have Joseph Smith at 87%. I guess you're blaming it on the prophet of the restoration. Okay, I got it. Who is smarter? Now, I do take great offense to this. Nemo, Exmo Joe, Dives, or Kulch? I finished bottom in my own poll, man. Gee whiz. Yeah, I can't even buy a vote, man. Wisdom of the crowd and Hellfire Agency being my sick hobby. Yeah, I finished in the bottom in my own poll. That's embarrassing. I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to edit that out. That will never see the light of day. Korihor's feathers show that he's pretty fly for a white guy. He's probably not binary. Is that an appropriate joke? He's on the spectrum. Not this one. Gedona, a high priest who didn't provide any evidence for his beliefs at all. You guys agreed that he's a typical Mormon who just lacks good ideas. Hard to disagree. The Alma actor is the most Mormon dude ever. I agree with you. He was. I do like the second place. He's a total hottie. Is he on Grindr? Yeah, I can see it both ways there. Who is more likely to get a casserole delivered to him every night by BYU co-eds on Monday night? And you guys said Alma. Interesting. Yeah, I agree. Alma is the most Mormon dude ever. And once again, Expo Joe got 0% on that. No casseroles for you. No casseroles for you. Why is Korihor almost on the verge of tears in like every scene? And you guys just said that he's just a friggin' actor, D-Base. Okay. All right. So much for suspending belief and playing along. The lack of women in this story shows that Sherry Dew wasn't around at this time. Otherwise, she'd probably get a little bit more action. I totally understand. The sexual tension between Korihor and Alma is, you guys voted for smoking hot. That is pretty hot stuff. I don't know. And the second place is, I don't know. I need to see more pics. There's some people out there, man. You guys, or, D-Base is a sicko. I'm glad that at least very many people didn't vote for that. A couple other ones here. Korihor's death proves, and the number one vote was never question Mormon Jesus. That's facts. Facts. Basic conclusion of Korihor's story is that fan fiction can be deadly. I tend to agree with you. Now, the after party, we're gonna hop in with this. This is a big live stream that's going with general conference predictions over there at Latter Daily Digest. So we're just gonna check in on them and see what they're up to. And yes, I know that I can't come up with any of my own content. I literally just, hey, look, I'm on the screen.
Third temp. Hope you're okay. It seriously is scary.
Yeah. But they really are building that
third temple in South Jordan. I'm on the screen.
He's announced temples now for the last 10 years in his tenure as prophet, and he hasn't built over 75% of them. This second Rexburg temple, it's on the way up. It'll be done shortly.
Why haven't they excommunicated any of those followers of the Visions of Glory group? I mean,
so I can speak to that a little bit.
If they're going to excommunicate and Oaks is going to go balls out to the walls out, excommunicate people, I have a list. There
you go.
You want to excommunicate people? Let's start over here, not here.
So I can speak a little bit to that. Obviously, Chad and Lori have been excommunicated at this point, although Chad was not excommunicated until the children were found on his property. So it was long after they knew that he was teaching apostate teachings, but it wasn't until he was really indicted legally that they excommunicated him. And a lot of the reason why they're not going after some of these leaders of fringe groups, for example, Mike and Nancy James, the people who are heading up Preparing a People, Christopher Perrett, who's the head of Avow, is because there are so many followers of the LDS Church who subscribe to these teachings that if they start excommunicating these people who are prepping for the end times, they're going against their own doctrine. So they can't do it. So there's a lot of controversy about this where they're not going to excommunicate anybody who is still even just a little bit on the church's party line of these things. And I think it's really unfortunate because, yes, absolutely, she became visible, follow the money. They're going to lose tithing dollars from all of these people who are very faithful tithe-paying members who believe in the end times, who are prepping for the end times. They're not going to start excommunicating those people. The people they're excommunicating are people like Nemo who are speaking out against the church leaders telling lies. If you commit the unpardonable sin of calling out church leaders for doing something wrong, for stepping on the wrong side of history, or for lying, God forbid, then you're going to get excommunicated. But they're not going to excommunicate anybody that's bringing in a revenue stream for them.
Yeah, exactly.
How
It
fascinating.
sounds like when they put out the manifesto against polygamy, were they actually going against polygamists? No, because those were their most loyal, most of the 12, most of the 70, most of the highest up of the echelon were in polygamous relationships. So this absolutely is par for the course. What you're saying makes sense, because they're not going to cut off their nose to spite their face, because it's money.
Yeah, Wilford would have told everybody, hey, we quit polygamy. Then he turned to the church and he said, hey, all you guys, head down to New Mexico and Mexico. Don't you dare quit.
And
keep
Canada.
going. Keep going. And Canada. And Canada. Yeah. In fact, there are still groups who have never stopped.
Yep.
Right.
Including Dallin Oaks and Russell Nelson. They are polygamists. They've been married in the temple to 2 different women now. Yeah. Are they going to have to choose which one, or do they get them both?
And when they die posthumously, how many women are going to want to be sealed? Do they still do that? Because remember how many people would seal themselves to dead prophets back in the day?
Yeah,
or how many prophets would seal themselves to young women on their birthdays? That was the thing that happened
one
too.
is questionable. Like what, 57? Happy birthday to you.
Yeah.
I personally think that Rusty's going to have one planet with Wendy and one planet with his first wife. That's how that's going to work.
Yeah.
So he'll have several universes.
And that's going to be under the jurisdiction of Danzel. It's going to be like, I don't even want to be on the same planet as that.
Danzel's going to burn her shit down if she sees Wendy.
Danzel's going to form a Death Star and put a ray right at Wendy's planet. It's going to be gone.
You know, it's funny. You were talking about temple attendance. And when I worked in the Portland Temple, I lived in Vancouver, Washington. Over 80% of the workers that worked in the Portland Temple were from Vancouver or the Vancouver area. So now they're building a temple in Vancouver. And I said to my husband, who's going to work in the Portland Temple? And which, you know, you'd think with all the subdivisions that fed into that Portland area, that it would have just been, you know, filled with workers. But no, they were crossing the river, and traffic has gotten so crazy in the Portland area now that it was really a sacrifice for a lot of those people to get over to Portland to work in the temple. But that's where the workers came from. So it's going to be really interesting to see. But yeah, it's going to be, I hope I live long enough to watch the apocalypse. Yeah. The ivy growing over the boarded up windows.
Gene, one of your commenters asked an interesting question. How much will our buddy JS be mentioned in conference?
Oh,
who's JF?
Very rarely.
Joseph Smith. JS.
I predicted the Motabs will sing one verse of praise to the man as a prelude, and then we'll be done with it.
Interesting. Yeah. It's all about Russell Nelson, the living prophet.
That's right.
So I want everybody's attention to the screen. It says from Aaron, thanking Megan for doing all the collaborations you've been doing. And I'd like to thank Megan as well.
I would too. It's fun. It's good.
And yeah, I think that the rising tide for us little ships has to, we have to.
Hey, who you calling the little shit?
Me. He's calling me a little ship. No, you guys are welcome on my channel anytime. Come and let's have a conversation. I love collaborating.
So are you guys. I'll look you up, Megan. That'd be fun.
We're at 1.5 hours, and most of my audience are probably asleep right now because they're quite a few of them are retired. But anyhow, you know, I appreciate them because they go to sleep and it keeps on playing the video and I get all the hours extra, right?
You don't have to ask people how old they are. You just say, what time is dinner?
I love it.
When they say 4 o'clock, you got it.
Everyone is also doing Mormon predictions right now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
all my
yeah.
notifications have been blowing up. Like everyone's like getting on the gravy train. So
Absolutely. They want to win the bingo, baby.
that's right.
Well, it's
And
been
I don't mean beach blanket bingo with Elvis either.
That's right, sir.
Gene, I love that you stuck Carrie and I over on the same side. I don't know, Brother Jones, you'll have to take your hat off. I don't know if you can.
I'm not sure if that's the celestial or the celestial side.
Terrestrial kingdom, baby, right here.
But anyhow,
Well, Renee definitely could be the earthly counterpart of the great lady, the heavenly mother. There's no question about that.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I can play that part. Yeah.
Yeah.
White hair, white. You've got the white beard. We could be in the.
I'm just saying.
You guys could have your own planet. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
So people from the different.
However, like Back to the Future, they might come back at us and say, "You're kids."
I just
Let's see. Am I pointing at Renee Steelman right now?
Yes.
Yes.
So Renee, tell us a little bit about your show and what you did posted lately.
Oh, okay.
And
Well,
send some people over there.
I just did a pre-conference little ditty on my podcast, She Invisible 513 on YouTube. And I related a lot of it to The Handmaid's Tale. And I think the fact that we have Section 132 in our canonized scriptures that call Emma handmaiden, that, you can only wear your red cape and your white bonnet. That's what everyone should be wearing to conference. But that was my latest. It's been really fun. And I'm hoping to get someone on next week that isn't a member of the church. We're going to talk about something completely different. I've been trying to do that, but this darn church keeps pulling me back in because every freaking week something happens. I'm like, oh my gosh, can you just slow down so I can talk about, I don't know, macros or something, and something different. But so that's
right. I learned a lot about conference. You went over some history of conference, and that was pretty cool.
Yep.
And so
Yeah.
everybody can go over there.
Fun.
And then
Fun.
Megan, what's your latest? things going on?
Unfortunately, I have to say I'm talking about the mental health aspects of the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, the family dynamics, the relational dynamics, the psychology behind it, and doing a lot of Mormonism 101 for people on my channel who have never been Mormon and don't understand why it's such a big deal for people to be trying champagne for the first time on national television. So that's a little bit of what I'm doing, but coming up, actually, I'm doing a series on indoctrination, how we all got brainwashed into the church, and the fact that I am a 7th generation Mormon. I'm going to be digging into some of my family history and the persecution complex that the Mormon church perpetuates.
That's right. I want to do a collab with you before you leave the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives behind, and do like what does an old white guy Mormon have to say about these young women that I've been watching. And I'm going to be very, very nice to them too.
I'm only on episode 2 right now. And honestly, I'm coming at it from the perspective of, these are brainwashed girls and they have a lot to unpack. Look at who their parents are. Look at the social and societal things that they're dealing with. And this is kind of their only escape and outlet from a really horrible, damaging system. So let's be kind to them.
My perspective is that they're geniuses. They're laughing all the way to the bank, right?
That's right. Making a hell of a lot more money than I am.
When we were kids.
I hope they're paying their tithing.
There you go.
I wonder if the church would accept their tithing from.
Oh yeah, the church will accept anything these days. They're all about the money, honey. Yeah,
that's right. And then
insurance person lives very near Lisa from Housewives of Salt Lake, and that's a good question, Megan. Did she pay tithing on her tequila?
Yeah.
So Carrie Schurz, the Backyard Professor, what do you have coming up?
I have some more. I just recently, I was very fortunate to have some of my audience and patrons help me purchase Margaret Barker's brand new book on the Great Lady. And I promised I would share more information out of that book with my audience. And the last time I talked about it, it went very well because Margaret Barker is such a phenomenal biblical scholar. But I am going to be doing, I call it a series. I get through a chapter and there is just so much that I love about it that I want to present it all. And so I do believe I'm doing a series, but it's not going to be uninterrupted. But I do believe this Sunday I'm going to be focusing on the great mother again. The great lady is what Margaret calls her. And, you know, to use Mormon speak, we would say Heavenly Mother. But yeah, so I suspect I'm going to be doing that this Sunday and sharing some more. There are some New Testament scriptures, themes with Jesus that's gonna blow your flipping minds how Heavenly Mother is tied in. And I've got to share it. It overwhelms me. It's so fun. It's so unique and interesting that, yeah. So yeah, I'm doing stuff more on Heavenly Mother, and then I've kind of been back beating up the brethren in gentle persuasion, love, and using my priesthood righteously against them with the BYP Responds, and I will be doing a lot more of those also. So
there you go.
It's exciting.
So thanks everyone for coming. Like and subscribe. Check out everybody's channels.
Hey, Jean, put Renee back on. She needs to plug her
Somehow,
stuff.
I don't seem to have power to be able to. So Renee, you're just going to have to re-click the links. I'm going to have to kick you from the studio and re-click in the links.
Debbie, I want to hear what you've got going on.
Yeah, Deb, what are you doing?
I only support every one of you who is willing to do this on a daily basis, because I do have another job, but I do love when I can get on and support and follow and contribute. And that's always my goal, is just to be a good friend.
What about you, Brother Jones?
My job's just to keep Gene on the straight and narrow and to watch all of his episodes.
That's right. Me and Brother Jones, we're going to do a travel log show. When I was visiting in, we'll say, the Far East, we saw some temples. We were so invigorated with temples, the temple work. We saw 900-year-old temples that are massive, that would put any LDS temple to shame.
That would be so awesome. Yeah, they do too. They knew how to build them right back then. Yeah,
absolutely.
Earthquake.
No cleaning clue required.
Okay, Renee wants to say something.
Oh, I was just saying, where the temples in Thailand undergoing, earthquake prevention, foundation repair.
I have a funny story. I have a funny story. 30 seconds. My mother-in-law she doesn't know much at all about the church. And when I told her that the new temple here was undergoing a 2-week closing for cleaning after 6 months, she immediately said, "That sounds like a racket."
Oh. Imagine a 4-year renovation. Cough, cough, 6.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Oh my.
And then the people who are really getting rich are those contractors who are building all of these temples.
I want to see in
my next life, I want to be a cement contractor.
Are those contractors related? Are they?
Well, in my next life, I'm going to be the prophet. Go big or go home. I want the money.
I'm going to be the interior designer that came up with those green couches and that wallpaper, because I'm going to get paid every time that same design gets used in a building all across the world.
Clever girl. Yeah, I like it.
In the next life, let's all create a religion and a temple. We got an interior designer. We got a contractor. We got an architect. We're good.
Well, we've got a prophet that can announce new temples all the time to keep all you guys employed.
That's right. Who needs revelation? All we need is some city names.
Right.
Well, thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you,
subscribe,
Gene.
and share. Check out all the shows that are represented here. And
a lot of
thanks
fun.
everyone for coming. And I will end the stream and say goodbye. And then we can still chat afterwards.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Lots of fun.
That was fun. They actually invited me to be on that particular show. Gene sent me a message earlier today, but I was already doing this show, so I couldn't do them both at the same time. Even though As Exmo Joe pointed out, I was able to sneak over there and get a comment or two during this channel, and I got them up on screen, so that was pretty fun there. I found Megan's channel. I just want to bring that to your attention here because I wasn't familiar with him. She is the only one out of that group that I was not familiar with, and she does the Midlife Revolution with Megan Connor. Live one-on-one coaching available now at thirdverse.com/home. She's got 9,000 subscribers, and I also did the I also went ahead and sent her a email and said, hey, you know what, I just I saw you on Latter Daily Digest. I sent her a quick email, see if I can collaborate with her, because I've actually had every single one of those people. There was 6 people. I've had 4 of them on the Mormon News Roundup, and Debbie is in the chat, and I'm familiar with her, so she's the only one that I wasn't familiar with. So I do hope that you enjoyed that episode. I'm going to play. Let me just run through the let me just run through the comments here real quick before I let everybody go. Hey, good night, everybody. Dives priesthood is true. We missed you, but thanks for sharing. Okay, I'll share one. I always usually do this, go out with this. I'll share one short that I put out here. Actually, I'll run a poll here. Let me see if I can pop a poll up here. Nah, forget it. Okay, Kwaku L of Ward Radio. I put this short together. This one's pretty funny. Nobody's seen this one before. It is kind of raunchy. Are you guys feeling late night a little bit raunchy here? I hope so, because this one's a little bit raunchy, but since you're still watching the show, I assume you're okay with that. We missed you, but thanks for sharing. Yeah, Debbie, maybe next time. Appreciate it. We'll get you on here sometimes. I subscribe. Thanks for the leak. Feelings come so very strong that I will subscribe before long. Very nice. Okay, let's take a look at this. Kwaku L of Word Radio reveals the secrets behind This Is the Show. But he won't say the acronym of This Is the Show. I do wonder why. And I do wish that Mark Crispin was in the chat right now, because I'm sure that he would elucidate it. But I actually just made this today. I want to hear Taint say Exmo Joe again. I'll play that if you really want me to. I will play that. But after this one, join Kwaku L from Word Radio as he dives deep into the exciting formation of This Is the Show. In this candid conversation, Kwaku shares insights and behind-the-scenes stories, all while cheekily avoiding the acronym. Okay, let's check this out here. Kwaku L, This Is the Show. And for those of you who are not familiar with it, it was a This Is the Show ended up getting removed from Utah. It got shoved down the memory hole, and it's kind of hard to find it now. You can go back and try to find pictures of it here, but it is hard to find. It's mostly only preserved because of Nemo the Mormon. But here Kwaku talks about it, and he won't say the acronym. This is the show, TITS. This is the show. He won't say the acronym for some reason, but I helped him out on this. Kind of a raunchy short here, but what can I tell you? Oh man, what happened? The volume? Oh, that was unfortunate. Let's go back.
We, with Brad, created this one show called This Is the Show, and we won't use the acronym, but
big tits, huge tits.
He won't say This Is the Show, but I filled it in for you just in case you weren't familiar with what TITS spells out. One more time here.
Brad created this one show called This Is the Show, and we won't use the acronym, but
big tits, huge tits.
We, with Brad, created.
Exmo Joe, you really want to see the Exmo Joe thing again on the... Okay, we'll show you the Exmo Joe thing one more time here. I think I have a... Let me search across your channel for Jacob Hansen with the Exmo Joe. Yeah, here it is. You really wanted to see this again one more time here. This is where Exmo Joe, where Jacob talks about Exmo Joe. You want to see this one more time. And by the way, I never actually mentioned my moniker here, Angel Fire Devotee. I think that looks pretty handsome. And my background, by the way, is also Hellfire Agency. I'm throwing out the good vibes here for Exmo Joe. But Jacob, the Korihor grows. You got it. Now, Jacob did talk about Exmo Joe here, and he wants to watch this one more time. Okay, we'll watch this one more time. For some reason, it doesn't have... That's annoying. It doesn't play with the
When
volume.
are you debating Dives or Exmo Joe? Exmo Joe? I don't know who that is. I know who Dives is.
I know him.
I know he made some random debate challenge. I think he was like preparing for it and was like calling me out. And I was kind of like, bro, what do you like? Why don't you like email me or something? Dude, like, if you want to actually do this, like, he made literally like whole videos about me apparently, and like he runs the Mormon News Review, which is kind of like, I do genuinely think, I don't know, maybe I won't say that. Say it. Dives is let's just say he's an interesting character.
Okay.
Most interesting character.
If he wants to actually do a formal debate, I mean, if we can come up with an interesting and compelling topic to debate, I might be open to that. Why don't you just email me and ask and we can talk about it instead of making entire episodes weird? He doesn't remember.
Wait till they get a load of me.
I am waiting.
One more time here for Exmo Joe. Let's just hear Jacob say Exmo Joe's name one more time.
When are you debating Dives or Exmo Joe? Exmo Joe?
Exmo Joe? Exmo Joe?
Mojo. Exmo Joe? I don't.
Exmo Joe? One more time.
Exmo Joe?
Exmo Joe? For heaven's sake, man. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Got a couple more. Let me know. We got a couple more out here. I got a couple more shorts out here. Let me see what. Hey, yeah, Exmo Joe, Latter Day Digest. We just watched your episode there, my friend. I've got a bunch of shorts here that I haven't released yet, but let me see what your thoughts are out there in the chat, and we'll let the chat decide. I've got 5 choices here for you. Here they are. I need to see the votes in the chat here. Put a 1 out there if you want to see Mormon apostles watching Pirates of the Caribbean. That's the top one. Number 2 is Russell Ballard's insane take on diversity. Number 3 is my inspired responses to Elder Ballard's Where Will You Go? Number 4 is Ferris Bueller's heartfelt farewell, God be with you till we meet again. Or number 5 is me dunking on the backyard professor. Okay, so once again, I need votes in the live chat at this time. We really will go out with this one. This is going to be our last video. I need you to vote at this time. Number 1, Mormon apostles watch Jack Sparrow and the Pirates of the Caribbean. Number 2, Russell Ballard has an insane take on diversity, which I poke fun of. Number 3, inspired responses to Elder Ballard's Where Will You Go? Number 4, Ferris Bueller channels the Mormon Tabernacle Choir with God be with you till we meet again. Or number 5, me dunking on the backyard professor and sending him packing. Let's see what we got out here. I see a 3, a 4, and a 3. Okay, I'm seeing more 3s out there. Can you please cast your votes at this time? We'll let it go for another minute or 2 here. What do you want to see? Oh, it's tied now. We got 2 3s and 2. Wait a minute. Debbie's voting twice. Debbie. Debbie's voting twice. Okay. Well, I got 3. I see 3s have it here. Inspired responses to Elder Ballard's Where Will You Go? Okay, that looks like we really will go out on this one. This is it. Where will you go? Okay. Inspired responses to Elder Ballard. Where will you go? What will you do? Shocking snark. In this playful video, we will take a lighthearted approach to Elder M. Russell Ballard's thought-provoking questions. Where will you go? What will you do? Join us as we dive into some definitely snarky responses that keep it fun while poking a little fun at the seriousness of life decisions. Whether you're choosing a destination or just looking for a good laugh, we've got you covered. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your own snarky replies in the comments. And if you could hit the thumbs up, hit the subscriptions, hit the notifications, I would greatly appreciate that. Here we go. Elder Ballard, where will you go? Let's find out. Whoops, here we go.
Where do I want to go?
Sorry, I'm going to refresh it. Here we go. For some reason, here we go. I got it.
Where will you go? Where do I want to go? Where will you go?
I don't know. Where do you want to go?
Where will you go?
Yeah, wherever I want.
Where will you go?
Stop saying that!
To whom shall you go?
Away from you.
What will you do?
What'll I do?
Where will you go?
I will do what I always do.
To whom shall we go?
Wherever we want.
Pause and think carefully.
Yeah, no thanks.
Leave the old ship Zion.
I'm leaving.
Will ye also go away?
Get away from me.
Where will you go? Where will you go?
Where will you go? Whatever I feel like I want to do. Gosh.
Napoleon Dynamite lets him have it at the end. I like the little girl here who just says, "Get away from me." And I do like the "stop saying that" guy as well. What is that from The Princess Bride here? Stop saying that. Well, and I like at the beginning here where we have Jim Halpert who says, "Oh, where do I want to go?" And then the this, I don't know who this is. She goes, "Oh, I don't know. Where do you want to go?" I mean, it's kind of a conversation here. One more time here. This is going to be it.
Where will you go?
Where do I want to go?
Where will you go?
I don't know. Where do you want to go?
Where will you go?
Yeah, wherever I want.
Where will you go?
Stop saying that!
To whom shall you go?
Away from you.
What will you do?
What'll I do?
Where will you go?
I will do what I always do.
To whom shall we go?
Wherever we want.
Yeah.
Pause and think carefully.
No thanks.
Leave the old ship Zion.
I'm leaving.
Will ye also go away?
Get away from me.
Where will you go? Where will you go? Where will you go? Whatever I feel like I want to do. Gosh.
Okay, we're signing off here in just literally moments. I was thinking about doing a live stream for a general conference on this channel where we'll just watch general conference and have people in the comments section. If you want to watch general conference along with me, I am thinking about doing that. I don't think anybody out there is really doing it. And I'm actually wondering if I'm going to do the live stream, whether I will actually do an episode on Sunday night. I haven't missed an episode in 2.5 years. But if I'm doing a full live stream on all day Saturday and all day Sunday, I don't think I can put out another episode on Sunday, though I do have a lot of back content, so I'm not sure yet. But anyway, hey guys, thanks so much for joining me on another episode. Really want to thank Exmo Joe out there for being in the chat. Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Remember, no unhallowed hand can stop this podcast from progressing.